Good morning, honorable judges and everyone present here. I am Salsa and I stand here as the first speaker of opposition team of today's motion. This House supports a permanent move to online tertiary education. Dear honorable judges and everyone present here, before we move into our arguments, let me first rebuttal the preposition's argument. The preposition argument rely heavily on ideal assumptions rather than real-world conditions. First, they assume that flexibility will automatically create discipline because it's flexibility. This shows that the proponent team didn't understand at all how discipline actually works. Discipline is not built from unlimited freedom, but from accountability and consistency. In online systems, students face minimal supervision and bigger consequences that would actually lead to procrastination instead of discipline. And realistically, not all students are in a position to consistently manage that level of independence. Second, preposition claims that online education eliminates the need to sacrifice anything. This is simply wrong. Online education doesn't eliminate the burden, it just shifts. Because students still sacrifice like financially by providing their own devices and continuously paying for internet access. Also, they sacrifice their physical health by prolonged screen exposure that lead to eye strain, fatigue, and reduce their physical activity. Furthermore, not every student has a conducive home environment for learning. Calling this no sacrifice reflects the fact that the pro has very limited perspective. Third, the proposition claimed that the difficulty to find job even for traditional universities graduated people. This is just weak and cruel and wrong. Difficulty in finding jobs is not caused by education system, but by factors like networking opportunities, practical experience, and professional exposure that only can be found in traditional school system. Since the proposition fails to prove that their system works in reality, we will now demonstrate to you why it actually creates more disadvantages than the benefit. First, the access inequality. And the structural inequality in infrastructure and economic access, the people. The proposition claimed that online tertiary education allows everyone to join anytime and anywhere, but this assumption is deeply disconnected from the reality. Not all regions have stable internet access, especially in the remote areas, while signal equality is inconsistent or even unavailable. This means that the students are not just going to face a minor inconvenience, but a fundamental barrier to participation. Also, economically, not all students can afford smartphones, laptops, or continuously internet data, which is very crucial for online education. This creates a system where access to education is no longer based on merit, but on financial capability and geographic privilege. The students in urban city can attend a class, interact with lecturers, and submit assignment on time smoothly, while the students in the remote areas may miss classes due to personnel and the lack of signal. This would only widen the gap between them, reinforcing inequality instead of reducing it, and clearly shows that a permanent shift would systemically exclude a significant portion of students. 2. Decline in learning quality. Online education often declining the motivation of students to this spirit, while flexibility that glorifies by the pro team. In reality, it just leads and reduce accountability. In fact, without structured schedule and direct supervision, students are more likely to delay the task and lose the spirit in their learning process. This is not just about how human behavior naturally responds to less structure. Additionally, online education is also inherently inefficient for practical or hands-to-hand subject. Also, as a social beings, humans get benefit from real-life engagement, discussions, and face-to-face learning environments that cannot be fully replicated online. This clearly impact to decline in both academic performance and holistic development, producing graduates who may lack practical competence and interpersonal skills. Compared to the proposition overly optimistic On flexibility, our argument explains these behavioral and educational consequences in depth, making it far more realistic. In conclusion, a proponent shift to online theory doesn't create a permanent shift to online theory doesn't create a more accessible or effective system. It just actually creates a more unequal and less reliable system because it systemically excludes students without proper access to infrastructure and financial resources, while still simultaneously reducing the learning quality by reduced discipline, engagement, and practical exposure that will just lead to widening inequality and declining educational outcomes in future, which ultimately undermine the true purpose of higher education itself. So instead of moving to online education tertiary, we should first improve infrastructure. Second, provide financial and technological support that will prevent disadvantaged students from being left behind, because education should be selective, not inclusive. The education should be for everyone, not just for the privileged ones. Overall, education shouldn't be built on unrealistic assumptions, but on fairness, quality, and real-world accessibility. While the proposition relies on what should happen, we expand about what actually happened in our lives, such as unequal access and the declining quality. What we need is a balanced approach that ensures no student is left behind. With that, I firmly oppose that an permanent move to online tertiary education. Thank you.